confused, everyone.
Let's get dangerous.
This is so cool.
I know.
It feels so right.
Speak, Ciely.
I'm sorry, who is this?
Nice try, Moonman, pretending not to know. Earth's greatest mastermind.
You just made the list.
I thought you said that was a myth.
Just because it's a myth doesn't mean it's not true.
If you all blindly follow my plan, we may have a chance.
Sure, we talk about it all the time.
Really?
No, burn.
Game on, you ducks and duckettes. Actually, you know what? When I was interning for the Tides, when I was back in college, which I think was in the 1800s, I was actually doing the in-game announcements and lineups and all that type of stuff for an AAU game. And I had to make the announcements about people, like there was like no more hot dogs or people standing in the dugouts. And one of the ones I remember actually said that. Instead of saying dugouts to the entire stadium, I announced and said, hey, just to be aware, please do not stand on the duckets instead of dugouts. Yeah. So anyway, let's get into the podcast. This is the long-form podcast I'll be doing, half hour, so it's not that long. It's just double the norm, and going to be doing kind of the biggest names, interests, whatever you might call it, for their decisions at every single week. And going forward on Wednesdays, I'm going to have guests for the entire season. 15 minutes of just me, 15 minutes with them, and we'll get you everything you need. And also, if you didn't catch it last week, the one with Pat and Ian is broadcast on Pat Mayo Network and also on YouTube if you want to watch it. I'll be posting it here as well. If you want to listen to them, go right ahead. They're going to be long. They're like twice as long as this one, which is 4 times as long at math. And but you can skip past them or you can listen to them whichever way you want. So let's just jump into week 1. I know you guys don't have a lot of decisions to make. It is week 1. You drafted who you're drafted. Anybody in the top 6, 7, 8 rounds, you're not even having a second thought about them. Maybe 1 or 2, but let's just go through it. We'll start at running back, and I'm going to pick out some of the names I've got questions about, some of the ones that might seem high or low comparatively. So right off the gate, it's Isaiah Pacheco. I have a feeling a lot of people want to know why Pacheco's inside my top 20. And I know that the Chargers are the Chargers, but at the same time, we talked about this either on this podcast, the Fantasy Pros podcast, Mayo, somewhere. And to credit to Pat Fitzmaurice of Fantasy Pros, he's the one that said this about 2 months ago, said if we never saw Pacheco at the end of last year, wouldn't we be thinking more of him, that injury optimism we always have? But we saw him play so poorly last year. But interesting enough, we did get a glimpse of him in the preseason. And similar to Deebo Samuel, looked pretty good, looked spry, looked explosive, looked like the old Pacheco. So I'm going to trust him mostly because we'll talk about some of the names behind him. I just know his workload. I know he's not going to be involved a lot in the passing game, but I do know he's going to get the majority of touches, at least in the run department. And of course, we know the Chiefs offense can score, usually tries to get out hot if they can against the Chargers. So it's more the scoring opportunity than anything. And actually right behind him, Marion Hampton at 19 with the talk about Najee Harris playing. I still have Hampton, as you can see, clearly as an RB2. I do think it's a little bit of a threat. The matchup against the Chiefs, we know how tough they can be against the run, and also not knowing how much Najee Harris is going to be involved. I wouldn't expect much in week 1, but this will be really telling. You got to start him. The talent is too good not to, but it's the Chiefs on top of it. Like, even if there was no Najee Harris, we'd already be saying, all right, expect RB2 potential because it's the Chiefs defense. Travion Henderson, as of today, checks in as an RB2. I don't see him changing from that. I was going to say as of today, 21, but I don't want to give out ranking numbers and then you listen to the podcast on Friday like, oh, Jake said 21. No, so we'll just kind of more talk in general. With Henderson, you guys know I love the explosiveness and the upside. I've brought up many times that James White of the Patriots and under Josh McDaniels was the last running back to finish as an RB1 with fewer than 210 touches. I don't necessarily say that Henderson's finishing as an RB1 this year, but top 20, yeah, I definitely think that's a possibility and probably in play. The Patriots were clearly tired of Ramondre Stevenson last year, tried to get Antonio Gibson to fill in for a week or two. It just wasn't happening. I think Henderson will be looking at low, mid-teen touches every single week, and he doesn't need 20 touches to put up a top 20 performance, everybody. I don't know what voice is that. I have no idea. I don't know what's happening. Let's move on. Breece Hall. Justin Fields actually checks down to his running backs a decent amount. The concern here, I think I brought this up on the running back show a few weeks ago, is that the bigger body running backs, the big guys, have been successful next to Justin Fields in the past, which we already heard about the split, this entire backfield being talked up. Braylon Allen is the big body, could steal touches, actually probably gets the touches in short yards and at the goal line, which means Breece Hall can be offset by the receiving game volume and his ability. But just keep in mind, he'll probably be an RB2 most weeks, and especially against the Steelers this week is concerning. And speaking of the Steelers, the Jaylen Warren contract, the Jaylen Warren excitement, we finally got what we've been asking for as fantasy fans for the past 3 years. All that being said, I do think Caleb Johnson gets more involved as the season goes on, and I wouldn't be shocked if we get surprised in week 1. And all of a sudden, Caleb Johnson, 50-50 split in the Najee Harris role. I do think it's going to take some more time than that, but I think there's a possibility that the Steelers are being coy with us. Still, I would only trust Warren this week. He is just outside the RB2 range for me. Even going against the Jets, not too worried about it. Interesting stat, by the way. Did you guys know? Not one single receiving touchdown for Jaylen Warren's career so far. That's just crazy to think about. Let's talk the Browns backfield. Jerome Ford, the starter, but I think that similar to the Steelers last year, the appeal is with the pass catcher. The appeal is with the more explosive player. And I think the appeal is Dylan Sampson going against the Bengals in a game that we all expect the Bengals to put up points and somewhat easily against the Browns. I'm leaning towards Sampson over Ford. And in this situation, I'm staying away from the entire backfield, and that's the Commanders. I have talked to people that cover the Commanders, and I've heard that they want to keep Ja'Cory Krosky or Bill Krosky Merritt fresh for the entire season. It's essentially almost been 2 years, like one game in the past, 2 years-ish, since 2023, that Krosky Merritt's really played. So that workload, I wouldn't expect a ton right out of the gate. And they've already talked about Rodriguez in the short situation, which goes back to what I said, full-blown committee, and that Austin Eckler is the only one I would trust. Ollie Gordon, I think, is a great upside play if you're looking to go deeper. Maybe you need the upside. Maybe you're just not loving your RB2 situation, whether it's the Jaguars, which we'll talk about in a second, or the Commanders, or whatever it might be. Ollie Gordon is in that number 2 role. Even with Achane out there and ready to go, Ollie Gordon can bring back RB2 value. I don't have him there because we still are assuming the volume, and there is risk with that. But I think Gordon makes a really nice upside play, although you probably knew that. In fact, I've been talking about Ollie Gordon. And then the Jaguars to finish running backs. I would stay away if possible. Another situation that sounds like what we might expect is Etienne as the lead, Bigsby as the timeshare piece, has limited value because of the passing game option. But if the Jaguars get out early, 14-0, 17-3, could see a lot more Bigsby. It's really how you expect this game to go. I would just lean towards Etienne if you have to dip down this far because he has the passing game volume. And I do think for the people asking that Bashal Tutin will get more involved as the season goes on. But as of right now, sounds like everybody's saying it's Etienne and Bigsby with Etienne as the lead and the pass-catching option. You know what? Let's talk tight ends real quick so you don't skip out at the end of the show. See what I did there? Tricked you, but also I know that people don't care a ton about tight ends. And I'm only going to talk about 3. Sam Laporta is lower in the ranks than people might expect, but hey, guess what? Now you have to stay tuned to find out why with Jared Goff. The second part about it, if you're looking for the super flyers, look, I can't imagine you needing a tight end in week 1, but maybe you're in your deeper leagues. Maybe you're just looking for a home run play. I've mentioned them before. Jatavian Sanders for the Panthers and Theo Johnson for the Giants. They have opportunities to be the second or third options if the teams utilize them with some serious matchup problems for defenses. So let's talk wide receivers. Actually, you know what? One more time. Pause. No more wide receivers. We're going to quarterback. I might as well. I just brought up Jared Goff, but I'm not going to talk about him yet. I don't even know why I'm doing this at this point. You guys hate me, don't you? I appreciate that you actually listen to my podcast, especially because this is a solo thing that I'm doing all the work for. But anyway, Drake May, I know some people have questions about him, but look, the upside is the rushing. He can run for 700-800 yards on the season. Against the Raiders, they can get pressure. But again, it's the scrambling and the ability to, have Travion Henderson and other options. Whereas I wasn't going to go too much into the wide receivers in that department because I'm staying away as much as possible. Diggs is going to play in week 1. How much? The full complement? How good does he look? Kayshon Boutte, Mac Hollins. Demario Douglas is the safest option. A better version of Wan'Dale Robinson, but still you're probably peaking as a wide receiver 4. I can't imagine you need Demario Douglas in week 1. But in any case, it's all about, hey, As I say a lot of times, buy the cake, not the icing. It's Drake May here, even against the Raiders. Dak Prescott, I think, is intriguing. I think he's a fringe QB1. I do buy back into the bounce back season. Buy into the bounce back season. Even against the Eagles, I think we have the ceiling for 300 yards and multiple touchdowns, but obviously the downside is it is against the Eagles, and it could go completely sideways, especially if the offensive line has issues, especially if Dak Prescott looks as bad as he did several times last year. Here's my strategy, though, that I wanted to bring up for Thursday Night Football with Dak and anybody else. Well, twofold. One is, do not play your flex players in your flex spot, or don't play your players in your flex spot for Thursday Night Football. Something happens surprisingly on Saturday or even Sunday morning, and you chewed up your flex spot. You eliminate how many options you have, whether running back, wide receiver, or even a possible tight end, because now you can't move anybody into your flex, so it has to be one of your openings elsewhere. The other part about it, when you have a tie-break situation, I lean into that. You don't have to do this, but I actually lean into starting my Thursday night player. I like to get as much information as possible, and I like to avoid the most potential mistakes, take some decisions out of my hands, so to speak. With Thursday Night Football, you get an early bit of info. Dak Prescott comes out, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. You started off hot. Two things. One is, now if you have a decision somewhere else about a tie break, similar to your quarterback situation, now you know you don't need to shoot for the home run play necessarily, given your matchup. Or maybe you do if Dak Prescott goes out there and throws 150 yards and 2 picks. At the same time, you have a big game, your opponent might go boom or bust with a pick they were trying to decide on, and you kind of put them in a position too. Again, it's just another piece of information that you get by going with the Thursday Night Football game. You don't have to. It's a personal preference. I enjoy it. I enjoy getting as much information as possible. Elsewhere, Justin Fields, I know he's not top 10. I know I ranked him top 10 for the season. He's still a QB1, just barely, admittedly. I think against the Steelers, there's a little bit of added risk. Not the fact that they know him from last year, but just the fact that their defense is really good. And yes, I know I reference all the time the 2 games where he scored over 20 points last year, combined 1 passing touchdown. However, I don't know that he runs for a lot of success against the Steelers. So that's why he's a fringe QB1. I told you I'd bring up Jared Goff. Jared Goff outdoors is overblown, especially the past 2 years. He's been playing much better. However, one place he does not play well is in Green Bay, and the Green Bay defense is something to concern yourself with. Jared Goff, similar to Dak Prescott, similar to other quarterbacks that have to do it all with their arms, they're going to have the lower floor, because if they only throw 220 yards and 2 touchdowns, that's okay. It's just not a great day, and you don't have that rushing upside to add a possible free touchdown. So Jared Goff, middle of the ranks. I'm not super excited about him this week, but I am thinking about Joe Flacco, 1 spot behind him, because, yes, he does have to do it all with his arm as well. But as I've mentioned before, because I've mentioned a few times now. I know. I'm sorry. I apologize. But anyway, Joe Flacco, over 4,400 yards in his last 17 starts. Cincinnati, Bengals. Don't know why I'm pausing, but they're probably going to score. Joe Flacco's going to throw a lot. I'm just saying. Joe Flacco week 1. Let's do it. Let's go. Let's have some fun. Let's talk wide receivers before we get out of here. Terry McLaurin against the Giants. The interesting thing about the Giants is, as rough as their secondary was last year, they didn't give up a lot of 20-yard plus plays. They kept a lot in front of them. Also, part of it being timing, because they do get a good pass rush, and now they've added Abdul Carter. So I'm saying that, I'm not benching Terry McLaurin. I'm not worried about his time away for the preseason. He knows what he's doing with Jaden Daniels. It's just that some of those big plays, he might only get 1, and it could turn into a touchdown. It just could be a day where he's 3 for 50 with no touchdowns. I just think it's a little bit more volatile than people might expect, because they know the Giants have been trashed for years, just as a heads up. Packers, let's get back to that game. Love some Matthew Golden. The Jordan Love situation, he sounds okay with the thumb. It's on the other hand anyway. But the Lions defense is good. The Lions secondary is good. But the good news is that we know Matthew Golden is the one. Jaden Reed didn't practice Wednesday. The foot's bothering him. At some point in the season, you have to assume he's going to miss games. But the real play here is that I think Romeo Doubs has some serious big play threat. Actually, he does just as a player, but it's some in this game if he can get behind the secondary, which might be tough. But I think he's in that conversation with like a Cedric Tillman, who we'll talk about in a little bit, Marvin Mims and others. But going back to Matthew Golden, I think this will score enough on both sides that I'm good with Matthew Golden as a wide receiver 3 in week 1. I wasn't just good, I was great. Wow, that was bad. As Ricky Pearsall being a wide receiver 2 this week if there was no Juwan Jennings. But now Juwan Jennings is back. And also Vic Tafer for The Athletic, covering the 49ers, said maybe cool your jets a little bit on Ricky Pearsall, especially with Jennings back. I don't love seeing that. And I trust Tafer. And I believe in Pearsall. I'm not moving him down behind Jennings. But now I have Pearsall and Jennings both in wide receiver 3 territory. George Kittle remains the only constant. Lost. He's the constant that we want. McCaffrey, Kittle. If you want to wait a week, I'm okay with it, especially because unless you drafted within the last week or two, you probably got Pearsall late as a bench option and Jennings as well. So I don't think you have to start either one of them. Although, like I said, I would lean towards Pearsall. Just maybe Tafer has seen some things that we don't want to see, unfortunately. Let's talk the Colts situation. Michael Pittman's healthy. I don't love Daniel Jones for Pittman as much as I liked Anthony Richardson and also for Alec Pierce. That being said, I would still lean towards Michael Pittman as the number 1, the best all-around talent. And you guys know I like Josh Downs, but kind of a nagging injury. He is practicing. I do think Daniel Jones is better for Downs than Richardson, but I also think that Tyler Warren is going to be an issue for everybody involved, and especially for Downs. Absorbing that middle space, which is the intermediate, it's short to intermediate game is where Daniel Jones does well-ish. And so I would stay, this Colts, I would stay away if I can. Again, another one except for Tyler Warren. I don't think you drafted any of the wide receivers as more than upside bench options. Travis Hunter against the Panthers is really appealing. The Panthers are very susceptible across the board, even with their improvements this offseason. Travis Hunter, since day one, the Jaguars have been saying wide receiver first and then a quarterback. The depth chart came out, which is depth charts, whatever. But Travis Hunter, starting wide receiver, backup cornerback. They know. They've been saying it. We know. Trust them. All that being said, Travis Hunter, boom bust wide receiver 3. I think there's some risk here. I think there's some risk also because what if they only use him in 3 wide to start the season with Diami Brown outside? Diami Brown kind of falls into that Marvin Mims boomer bust. I would take Marvin Mims and Cedric Tillman ahead of Diami Brown and ahead of Romeo Doubs, who I talked about a few minutes ago. But all that being said, there is more risk with Travis Hunter being week 1 and wanting to see the usage. I have him as a fringe wide receiver 3 or 4, kind of in the Michael Pittman, Juwan Jennings, Jacoby Myers range. So if you need that ceiling, I have no problem going with it. But at the same time, we are hoping that Trevor Lawrence finally takes that huge step forward we've been asking about to be that generational prospect we were all hoping he could be. The Bills situation is interesting, as in interesting enough to stay away. Khalil Shakir is practicing and fine. The only one I would trust, I've been taking flyers, as you guys know, both on Keon Coleman and Joshua Palmer. Keon Coleman having some issues in practice, injury issues. Doesn't sound like he's going to miss the game, but I would full weight on Coleman or Palmer wherever I could. If you need to take that huge risk, I understand it, but it's hard to see that in week 1 needing to. The one I would take the huge risk on, mentioned it before with Joe Flacco, Cedric Tillman had that huge run last year, and I think there's a non-zero chance that we get to the end of the year. If Joe Flacco starts 15-plus games and Cedric Tillman plays 15-plus games, I do think there's a world, maybe it's in Universe 582 or whatever that is, where Cedric Tillman outscores Jerry Jeudy on the season. So let's not forget the excitement and the talent we had. He's like now a post type sleeper, but I like some Cedric Tillman. If you're deep league, Xavier Legette, the big question was going to be how much he shared with Jalen Coker taking the Adam Thielen role, and they did sign Hunter Renfrow, but Legette's going to get the opportunity now. He's going to be the top 2 wide receiver definitively. He's going to be out there in 2 wide receiver sets anyway. And this is a first-round talent, 32nd pick. Maybe they reached, in some people's opinions. I even had him going a little bit later in the draft. That being said, I'm still a fan, and I think that if Bryce Young shows anything of what he did last year, that Legette could be a very interesting one. If he's still out there on waivers, there's no way I would let him float out there. 2 more, mentioned them quite a few times. They're not starts in week 1, but I will have my eyes on close watch. I don't even know where I was going with that. As you could see here, you get my point. I'm going to be watching them closely, if I would grammatically say that properly. Wow, that wasn't even right. What the hell's going on? It's week 1. Got to shake off the rust, everybody. Anyway, Roman Wilson could be the number 2 for the Steelers, and Alec Ayamano could be the number 2 for the Titans. Actually, he's already listed in front of Van Jefferson. Don't know that I'd start either of them in week 1, but yeah, if they're the number 2 for their teams, there's enough upside with both to be wide receiver 4s and some very interesting pickups ahead of Week 1 waivers, which is why they were in there. I'll throw out a random defense. I got a lot of questions about the 49ers because it's Sam Darnold. And I know people said the Seahawks are going to go run heavy. Sam Darnold's still going to throw 30-plus times. And if the 49ers are healthy, which they are, have you ever seen a team with as bad of injury luck as the 49ers last year? But anyway, they're healthy. They made additions. They got Robert Saleh back running this defense. I just think there's some opportunity for some interceptions and a potential touchdown if you're looking for a defense for Week 1. And oh, by the way, look at them going forward. A couple more nice matchups after this. As mentioned, we'll be back next week with a rotating cavalcade of gloriousness, guests of amazing wonderfulness in the fantasy world. If you have any suggestions of somebody you might want to hear, I have almost the full season already set, but I have about 2 or 3 open spots. If there's somebody you want to tweet at me that you're like, hey, I haven't ever heard you pot it up with blank, just shoot it my way. And oh yeah, I did get 2 more Madden codes. I have a PS5, I have an Xbox. I will say this is the easiest entry I will ever give you, and it's a trust factor one. Tweet me, X me, whatever you want to call it, blue sky me. I'm on both. Tell me that you actually told 3 people to listen to my podcast. Again, trust factor. I'll believe you. Because you guys are great. And ladies are great. Everybody's great. My dog is great. Barkley's great. Hi, Barkley. So just do that, and there's your entry. There's your entry to potentially win the last round of Madden codes, which I will give out next week. I'll let my guest announce them. Look at that. Under 30 minutes. There you go. First long form in the book. The guest will make it more 30 minutes. But quick, easy to digest. Just like I hope your Week 1 of the fantasy football season is. Let's get those W's. Speaking of, let's eat those easily digestible W's. Jameis Winston, yes.